Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. A couple of announcements. Grafton Recreation is hosting a collectibles fair this Saturday, September 9th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the gymnasium here at the Municipal Center. The event will feature coins, comics, cards, records, sports memorabilia, and more. The Select Board is looking for volunteers to fill a vacancy on the Council on Aging. Please email taoffice@grafton-ma.gov. Use our online portal or send a letter of interest to the Select Board at 30 Providence Road to apply. Applications will be accepted until Wednesday, September 13th. The Grafton Senior Center is proud to host a health and wellness fair this Friday, September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the Senior Center Gymnasium. This event is free for all interested participants and will include free health screenings, balance screenings, and a multitude of health and wellness products. Let's see. So first up, we don't have any public hearings this evening. First up, we have the Veterans Advisory Committee appointment. And we have Mateo online. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Maybe you could just give us a couple of minutes on who you are and what your interest is.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the time this evening. Mateo Urella, I've been in town for just over 5 years, grew up in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. My wife also grew up in Shrewsbury. We graduated Shrewsbury High. We have 4 kids. Oldest just started in Grafton Public School last year in kindergarten at North Grafton Elementary. We have 3 younger than her who will be in school as well. Purchased a home right over here on Worcester Street, so we'll be here forever. Our kids will be here forever. So looking to get more involved in the community. I myself am beginning a master's in communications program at Georgetown, actually in February, and just wrapped up my MBA at Boston University. I work in National Grid. Actually had a bit of a late night at work, so I still have my work jumper on here. But putting together a Navy Reserve officer package for a public affairs officer for consideration for next board, which is June 2024. I do our veterans employee resource group communications at work, so I'm director of communications for our resource group. Next week alone, I'm volunteering with the USO. I'm volunteering with Team Rubicon in Providence Stand Down. Later in the month, I'll be volunteering Winchendon Veteran Cemetery. And so just trying to get more involved both in the Grafton community and the veteran community at large as well. I saw this opportunity come up when I ran into Mr. Brassard at the recent first night, August 1st, and wanted to throw my name in the hat immediately, and so that's what brought me here tonight.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all of that. Any questions or comments?
Sounds qualified.
Yeah. Yep. You might be a little overqualified even, but yeah, thank you so much for your interest. It's a really strong committee, so I'm sure that they will love your participation.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I will take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to appoint Mateo Urella to the Veterans Advisory Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mateo.
Thank you all.
All right. Next up, we have the Trails Committee. So some information came to our attention late last week, and I'm going to ask that we just pass over this. What I'd like to do is to bring up the topic of the Trails Committee charge in our next meeting. We'll distribute some information for sort of review, and we can discuss if the Select Board wants to update the charge at that point. and then we can move forward with the appointments. If that makes sense. Pretty good with that?
Fine with me. Sure.
Fantastic. Okay. Next up, we have appointments. I believe we are passing over 3A,
Yes, please.
and we're going to move right on to 3B, which is the auxiliary firefighter. So, Chief, did you want to come up?
I
don't-
didn't
you don't have
even look at the agenda today. I just knew I was coming.
I can make a motion.
So we've got Stephen Flanagan. If you just wanted to say anything, if you didn't, that's fine.
No, after his interview, he seemed like a good candidate. So
All right,
moving along in the process. And hope
Mr.
he
Chair,
shows up.
fantastic. Ms. Foley.
I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Stephen Flanagan to the position of auxiliary firefighter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for discussion. Barring none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to new business. We have a road closure request from the Congregational Church of Grafton for the Harvest Fair. Let's see, who do we have representing that? Anybody?
I don't know. I think Brandon is here for the Apple Tree Arts,
Okay, yeah,
so possibly
makes sense.
Van Neely.
No, I
Nope.
think he was the Trails.
He was with Trails.
Okay, sorry.
Fine. Okay, so this is something that happens every year. The
Yep.
information and, is in our
Yes.
packet. So any questions?
Went through the police department. The police chief had no issues.
Yeah, okay, great. Then I'll
Mr.
take a
Chair?
motion. Ms. Foley.
I move the board vote to approve the road closure at 30 Grafton Common from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday, September the 24th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. All right, we have a one-day beer and wine license from Apple Tree Arts.
Hello.
Hey, Brandon, good to see you.
Good to see you guys too. So the application that was submitted was for our series of concerts for this fall. So we have a slate of 4 different concerts that we're trying to put on in the Great Hall. Pretty standard concert fare, and beer and wine with tip certified servers.
Great. Any questions on that application?
Just gonna say it's great that you got Mrs. Brandisi.
Yeah, we got her right before she was ready to relocate. So
Fantastic.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Foley.
I move the board vote to approve a one-day beer and wine license for Apple Tree Arts at 1 Grafton Common on September the 7th, September 28th, October 5th, and November 2nd of 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Next up, we have an update from Chief Matthew. Chief, this was just an opportunity to sort of check in with you, see how things are going. It's been a while since we got an update from you, so the floor is yours. Just let us know.
Do you have enough time?
We got time
No?
for you. We always have time for the fire department.
Well, just to start off tonight, thanks for having me. We've had quite a busy year. As you know, it was my first year, and a little interesting getting my feet wet in the whole chief role and all that fun stuff. But it's very exciting. The membership has stepped up to do a lot of things and pick up a lot of new tasks and stuff that they're more than willing to do, and it shows that the department as a whole, that just morale is up, and it just shows in what everybody's showing up to. Just to throw out a few stats to you, so far this calendar year, we're up to 471 fire runs. Last year we maxed out at just under 600, and this year that puts us on pace around 675 to 680. So we're definitely doing a lot more, answering a lot more of the medical calls has made a difference. Not a huge uptick, but it is something that has increased the runs. In fiscal year 23, department members attended over 1,500 hours of training combined, and the prevention department handled over 700 inspections in town, both commercial and residential. And some of the stuff going back to my 90-day plan and a few other things, we're set to roll out our first set of 5 SOGs this month. That's standard operating guidelines. We've had a lot of back and forth with the committee. We've been looking at other communities and trying to build off of those, and there's been a lot of revisions and drafts that we just want to make sure that we get it right before we send it out, and that way we're not making changes all the time, so it's easier for the members.
So Chief, what's the process that you envision with regard to policy?
After talking to town council, she said that it was clear that town council didn't have to approve it as long as it didn't deal with personnel issues, like HR type stuff. If it's just our guidelines as far as how we operate on the street, then we're good to go. And I'd have to throw it back to the board to see what you guys want. If you want me to bring the policies before we enact them for approval, but that, you oversee me, so I have no problem putting them out, but if you want to see them first, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, so that's why I asked. We do have sort of in our mandate policy review. So I just wanted to open the discussion up to the board to just find out, how we want to run that process, because obviously this is going to be, a fairly continuous thing. So do we want to see those first? Do we want to sort of affirm those once they've been, agreed and put in place by the fire department? How do we want to work that?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mead?
I think, Chief, if we get to look at the non-fire related SOGs,
Yeah.
we don't need to look at fire related SOGs, so just the other ones, and that's pretty much it.
Does the rest of the board agree with that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
sure.
Certainly out of
Sure.
my purview.
I mean, I'm obviously fine with forwarding them all to the board, and,
Do you guys want to look at them
but-
first, and sort of we can start with all of them and then decide, okay, we don't need to see those fire-related ones to go forward.
It's fine with me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and for me, I'm leaning more towards just like the affirmation approach as opposed to reviewing them, I guess, before they go out. And the chief's gonna know the policy better than I am,
Right.
So
Okay.
it'll be hitting everything from having a backup person to chalking wheels on trucks, so.
Yep.
It runs the whole, gamut as far as what we deal with, so.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with this? When you have sort of a package of them that you
Yep.
want to move forward with, if you could just send them to us for review.
Sure.
We'll put that on the agenda. If there are no questions, then we'll just affirm those, and you can move forward with them. And eventually, I think we'll get to, we don't need to see those because those are way too technical for us, and we might want to see things personnel related or budget related or whatever. So let's start with that though.
Okay. Moving on, the next thing we tackled was a new promotional policy, which I believe I did send to the board a while ago. My miscalculation is don't try to promote people during vacation season because you can't get anybody for interviews or whatever. So that's been put a little on hold. We're picking that back up. Actually, next week we're scheduling some interviews to set up permanent promotions for the current intern positions that we have now. As I mentioned earlier, the first responder program for medicals, we've had an uptick in those due to shortages in EMS in general in Massachusetts and other surrounding areas. I appointed a medical coordinator to oversee the EMS committee and to generate SOPs for the EMS side of things. We also reached out to the state and are working on getting our licensure to be able to dispense medications such as Narcan and epinephrine. And my reasoning behind that is if we're going out somebody's calling for the ambulance and the ambulance can't make it and we're going, we need to be able to do everything we can as first responders. So we're working hard on that. There's a few members that are very knowledgeable in that area and they're really shining, and taking care of that stuff. And one of the things first things they did was they came in and said, we need to standardize all of our EMS equipment. So whatever truck you go to, the bags the same, because we have numerous members that respond on different stations on different trucks, so it just makes it that much easier for everybody, for a learning curve and all that. Recruitment has been going great. I know a lot of you have seen us out with the recruitment committee, still doing a lot of advertising, yard signs, all kinds of stuff on social media, just showing what we're doing day to day. With all that, we've been able to keep the same number of personnel we have, even with all the retirements we've had in the last year. I look at that as an accomplishment, but I still want to build more to take some of the load off of all these calls from just the people that are responding to everything. So the more people we have, the less burden, and I think that'll go a long way. But right now we have 2 auxiliary firefighters that are starting the academy this month. We had 2 graduate a couple months ago, so we're filling the stuff right up. We have the affirmation tonight for the hire. We have another candidate that's going through the hiring process right now. We're waiting for some results and final interview with them. And let's see. 2 sides, Ray, sorry. Along with the recruitment, the increase of the detail rate has helped us keep members that, would have potentially been looking out of town to make a few extra bucks, and they've been able to more efficiently handle all the details that we've had of late. I think there's only been a couple occasions where we've had to reach out beyond just a text message or an email to get somebody to cover a shift. Along with that, as far as retention, that's something I would like to look into in the future, as far as establishing a better stipend for our call firefighters. Right now it's $100 a year, and I would like to increase that. I haven't thought of a number yet, but it'd be good to put some sort of a goal with that, making a certain percentage of the calls over the year get you the full amount and go from there. As well as with the increased workload that we've had, a higher differential of pay for the officers to firefighters. Right now it's only a couple dollars an hour to go from firefighter to captain, and there's another step in between that comes out as cents a few times on stuff. So I'd like to do that again to make the position of officer more attractive, and hopefully to get people to stay on and want to achieve that goal. And then stations, the renovations at Station 2 are going pretty good. Again, summertime's tough, but we're rolling back into the second half with Ray doing a lot of work for that. It's greatly appreciated having extra hands to handle all that stuff. Gives me time to think of all the policies and everything else instead of worrying whether the garage door is going to operate properly or not. Along with that, Station 1, I don't know if you were all aware, last July we had a small electrical fire in the station. One of the lighting fixtures burnt in the ceiling, and all the molten plastic and stuff dripped on the epoxy floor, ruining the floor. Thankfully, insurance covered replacing the floor, and most of the lighting we upgraded to LED lighting. And also, while the electrician was there, I said, what can we do for outside? And they replaced all of our exterior lighting to LED to hopefully offset a little cost in the future. Trying to think. And then I've talked with Evan of late as far as personnel about looking into the 3rd full-time position, the lieutenant of training / fire prevention. There's been a tremendous workload, as I mentioned, and it really showed on our overtime budget and a few other things how much time Captain Clean is spending on stuff after hours and things of that nature. And I think it would help, lower the pressure on him, and again, open up a little more time in the office if we have somebody to handle the small stuff, like, letting somebody into a unmanned station so that they can do work and stuff like that. Whereas now I could be in the middle of something and the electrician's got to get into Station 2. So I'm in the car down to Station 2, let him in, because I'm not gonna call somebody else away from their regular job to do that. So that's something, like I said, I've been talking with Evan about, and we'll do some more before, in the next few month or so. And then the last thing is apparatus. We've done a lot more, preventative maintenance. We're on a schedule now. The tower was, inspected and passed inspection. And that brings me to replacement of the tower in the plan, the apparatus plan. It calls for replacing the tower next fiscal year. That's not happening.
No.
Yeah. Just some of the stuff with apparatus purchasing. We've had an engine that we ordered about 2 years ago, and it was supposed to be in a year, and now we're looking in hopefully March it'll be here. So with that, if we were, I'm gonna get a build committee together, because they're projecting that if we were to order a ladder truck tomorrow, it would be over 3 years before we see the apparatus.
Wow.
So if we can, I'm gonna try to get that ball rolling so that we can be ready, and that would bring our current ladder truck up, if we were to do it then, would be 27 years old. And we're already getting to the time where parts are not gonna be available and all that stuff, so. Right now, we're in good shape as far as the truck's concerned. The other caveat to that, and Evan knows, is to replace it today, or to order it today, the estimate is probably $2.5 million for the ladder truck. Far cry from 30 years ago.
Would that count as today's price, or do you pay the price for what it costs in 3 years from now?
They estimate the price for 3 years, because it's cash on delivery, basically. They'll pay on delivery. Them.
That's a lot.
And sometimes that estimate doesn't work out.
Better get the raffle tickets
Yeah,
going.
the other thing we're seeing in fire apparatus is surcharges now.
Yep.
So you're basically in the queue, and then they say, okay, we miscalculated, you owe us another 14%. And so we're dealing with this with one of the engines we have on order, and the interesting thing is, there's no legal obligation in the contract for us to pay it, but then you don't get the truck, right? Because there is an out clause, so you just go right back to the beginning of the queue with a different vendor, and you're probably going to pay more than what their surcharge is. So we went round and around on it, and I would anticipate that that's going to happen again when we try to do this ladder. Is that we're going to budget for what they're telling us it is today, but who knows what
we
we're going
gotta
to be at 3 years
gotta
from
be
now.
ready.
We're close to delivery.
So to end on a good news piece, the the brush truck that we ordered is set to be delivered on time in December. A little less money.
Right during brush fire season.
Yes, exactly. It'll give us time to train with it, so we're ready for brush fire season. So those are my highlights. I would love to go over lowlights, but I honestly can't think of any. Like I said, the department has stepped up unbelievable in the last year, and a learning curve for me, but they've made it, obviously I was part of the department before, but just welcoming, and they're very receptive to a lot of the changes and some new ideas and stuff. So it's been going really well.
Any questions for the chief? Go ahead.
I think the answer is good to very good, but how's morale?
Dave, Mike? My plants.
Gotta bring some ringers.
They get a free ice cream at the end of the day.
There you go.
Any thing that you want to share in terms of your participation with the regional call center, sort of dispatch or anything?
Yeah, I mean, this was department stuff. With the regional stuff, the membership itself isn't really involved, but myself, Chief Crapo, and Evan have been attending meetings with the Westboro chiefs and town administrator, and Things are going along pretty well. I think we're further ahead than the state thought we were. So
By a long shot, yeah.
yeah, but things are looking good on that end, and I'm kind of excited about it. So
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Chief,
Great
thanks so
job.
much for coming in.
Thank you.
Great job.
Really
thank
appreciate
you very
it.
much.
Great update.
Okay.
Oh, actually, that's another thing. I know we talked about like quarterly updates. Would you like to set that up? Like, I'll make sure that I'm on the agenda or whatever on a quarterly fashion, or
Yes,
Okay.
that makes sense. So hopefully next, yeah, I think more frequent updates,
Okay.
with kind of smaller, more incremental ones to make a little
Yep.
bit more sense. So I'll just work with Amber to sort of get
Okay.
you on an agenda, and we'll go from there.
all right, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Chief.
Chief.
All right, so next up we have the school department maintenance building at 3 Worcester Street. I will sort of hand this over to the TA and the superintendent to walk us through the overhead.
Sure. As you know, good evening, everybody. I came before the board this past spring looking for some guidance on 3 Worcester Street. So the old fire station, our current space for maintenance, as I explained then, for almost a decade, probably a decade now. It's been kind of framed as a temporary space for us. So other than we've put in a furnace, a couple new garage door pieces. We put in a small investment in the building, but obviously as a temporary space, we haven't lined up capital. We haven't put investment into it. After the discussion that we had in the spring, my marching orders were to go back, get estimates on repointing, repointing, that was 118,000, window replacement, 70,000, new garage doors for the 3 bays, 28,000, and roof replacement at 95. So the total estimate, approximate estimate, is $311,000. So I've done that. I sent that information in a memo, brief memo, to the school committee and the select board on August 4th. And here we are.
All right. So I'll just open it up for discussion with the board. I know we have a number of people that want to have public commentary on this. What I'd like to do is have some board discussion first. We'll have the public comment. I'll ask for people to limit their comments to about 3 minutes, so just so we can get through that, and then we'll wrap up with the board discussion and hopefully just some direction for you guys. So,
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Mead.
Jay, I'm 100% in favor of this. The only thing that I would that I would add to this is that the driveway that goes to the left side of the building and around in the back,
Yep.
is that gets regraded, repaved, and striped, so that the businesses in the area and people in the area can use that for parking. The area down there it's actually bigger than it looks like right now, because of the all the trees that have grown in, and there's trees in the back and everything. That's the only thing that I would add to this.
Okay.
When that was a fire station, we used to have meetings there, and there were at least 15, 16, maybe 18 cars in that parking lot. It would add to the businesses in the area.
Yep.
But other than that, I am 100% in favor of this.
And while not at cost, I want to add that if the board does go in the direction of us staying at that location, we would clear out just the stuff in the back that's accumulated.
yeah.
Obviously clear that out.
Yep.
Some of the things can just be tossed, but the things that we need, we would store them behind the middle school.
Yep.
We have a spot for that. Clear that out. The other issue that comes up is around the parking in front of the bays. We still have to figure that out, but if we stuck with this spot, I would think we'd have parking in front of 2 of the 3 bays. I would think that in case of emergency, we'd have to have access to what's in the building, but I don't think we need all 3 bays to do that.
I mean, I just think it's, the building has good bones, and I'm not in favor of building a new building, you know, behind the high school or wherever you were, you know, where you guys were thinking about building. Not in favor of that at all, of building a new building. We have a building and it, for little money, we can make it very useful to the school department in the town.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Alamo.
Just a couple questions. When this came up, this might have been my second meeting, so it was relatively new. So my apologies. But I kind of put on my old contracting hat and also a fair amount of time selling to the public sector. So just from those points of view around getting bids, getting pricing, getting this cost structure, just wanted to try to work through that a little bit and understand like what are you storing when you say like this lawn equipment? Are these lawnmowers? Are the big riding lawnmowers? Yeah. Is there any other? Are there any other locations that they can fit into? Because here's where my head is at on this. When you start, and this also draws upon a conversation I had this past weekend with a friend of mine, who's an electrician, and I didn't know this, but if you start renovating parts of homes, depending on the percentage of the home, you have to then take the entire rest of the home and bring it up to code. Insulation, electrical, plumbing, the whole piece. And that starts to get really, really costly to store, well, I guess lawn equipment, and I like to talk about that a little bit. So you can see my head's around a couple of different thoughts, and there's a few more things in there. So what's going in there? Have we thought about the rules, this new codes to bring structures up to full code, to current code? This is like a 90 or 70-year-old building. And then how did you come up with this cost structure?
The estimates were pretty straightforward. I'm not going to give you the most robust answer ever. I had planned to bring Tony LeMay, our longtime buildings and grounds supervisor. He's the one that in August collected the estimates. He has left the district and he's in Westboro now. Good for him, but it's a bit of a catch-up phase for us. So I don't know exactly the specifics of each, and I can certainly get those and come back to the committee in 2 weeks if you like. In terms of the code, I don't know if I did not involve Mr. Berger and bring him in to see if there are code issues. We can certainly do that. I want to be really clear that I want to advocate for whatever is best for the town. But if we have a space for our guys that has heat, that can house our trucks, plows, we do have lots of mowing equipment and just equipment for maintenance. We don't have a big department, but we cover electrical. We do a lot of we have plumbing stuff. We have a lot of stuff, and I'm more than happy. I think Anne Marie visited today. I'll show you the stuff that we have. We don't have space otherwise. I wish we did. That would be the easy thing, believe me. So if we have that space in any way, shape, or form that again meets those basic requirements for us, we're thrilled. I'm not dreaming about 3 Worcester Street and how I just pray we can hold on to it. I do know we need a space. So long story short, I can get information. I do have the actual estimates, so I can get information on those. I'm more than happy with Evan to talk to Mr. Berger about having him go up and take a look at it, what it would need to maintain meeting code if we do have upgrades.
Because that's a factor that I didn't realize until, like I said, this past weekend, and that's not trivial. That could be a huge mitigating factor with all of this.
Yep.
Maybe it's not, but there's a certain percentage that you hit,
be.
And then that's it. Then everything else has to be brought up, and that's like almost gutting the place just to get it to where you want to get back to neutral to current code, and that's probably not reflected in this.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a point of information, it's the valuation to upgrade an entire building is 25% of the total value of the building. $311,000 doesn't meet it.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, if I might, so that was one thing that I had was just how close were we to that number? I thought it was 30%, but like you said, I'm sure Mr. Berger knows what it is.
It's 30%.
And if it is, I think this number's kind of close to that. But anyways, that would be something that, other folks can look into. And then if that's the case, what do you do? Just take something off, or I don't know how you go around that. But there could be a go around, obviously, but something to consider. And then I also had the question about was this just quotes from one vendor versus a number of different people? And
Yep.
but you can get us that from Mr. LeMay. Go ahead.
If I could just
Yeah.
interrupt for 1 second. So generally speaking, what we do is we get quotes from one vendor,
Okay.
and that's your high water mark.
Okay.
For then going out and going to the town and saying, this is how much it's potentially will cost. If we can go later through the procurement process and get at a better value, we certainly do that, but we don't,
Okay.
necessarily spend, all this time getting all the stuff to then say, oh, we're gonna
We're
go
not
a
gonna do
different
it.
direction.
Got it,
That's
yeah.
all. Thank you.
Fair enough. And then, depending on where we're going, I wasn't here on the 15th. I don't think that you guys talked about it too much, but I listened to the meeting. But, I want the other numbers, right? So here's the numbers, potentially like a rough number on repairing it. What our other options are potentially to have this stuff elsewhere? What would that cost? And again, I don't know how far into that we want to go. But that would be a number I'd want to know before I'm voting on anything. Additionally, if one of the goals is to potentially add more parking, what would that cost, right? To raise the building and then just have parking. So, to make an informed decision, those would be two other numbers that I think would be helpful, depending on where we decided we were going to go with this.
So just to clarify, I guess, so you are interested in the number to raise the building and do parking. And
But then that would also have to include the number
Truck
of
spot somewhere.
relocating you as well.
so that would be a package, I guess,
Kind of
cost.
have to be, yeah.
Okay.
Just again, looking at trying to make an informed decision. And I did have a question about so is there heating? There is heating in there?
Yeah. That's the one thing that's kind of functional.
Okay.
I don't know how great it is, but we put in a new furnace a few years
Yeah,
ago just
okay.
because it just stopped working.
And then to Ray's point, a compromise could be, I know folks are here, and when I think about the common and what's changed in the last 30 years since I've been here, why is there a sense of needing more parking? I thought about the dance studio being one driver, and then I think the change of Ray's to the antique store, bringing, more people. Most other things have remained somewhat static, in my opinion, over the last 30 years. But I could see that those two things, especially with the dance studio at One Grafton Common, now expanding to, I think, 3 spots in there, right? So I can appreciate that there is probably a need for more parking at various times, during the day that maybe I don't see regularly. And if we were going to go this route, could there be some sort of compromise to your point, Ray? Could we snag some spots there somehow that could be for town use if things were cleared out a little bit more, and if it was, paved and like outside here now, delineated, and you probably got more spots out of it. So just something to think about where meets some of the needs for our businesses that I know have concerns on the common, in addition to, I'm assuming that the cost to build a new building and raise this one is going to be more than the 300. But again, my concern on this was just that ADA, where we hit that number.
Mr. Elmo.
Yeah, that's it probably would be helpful for the businesses, but even for the people that go there and park there, that just us, we're looking for a space. It's harder and harder to find a parking space. That's an interesting point. Some kind of a compromise, at least, to look at that. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good idea. We could use it.
So I have 2 board members interested, I guess 3, in the option where we sort of stay in the building, fix it up, but also redo the parking so that we can add some additional parking capacity there. I'm guessing that we would want some cost for that as well, so that, again, if we're going to move forward with that option, we understand how much it's going to cost. Does that make sense? Yeah, all right. So Evan, is that something we can ask?
Yep.
You guys to look into?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have it all.
Which parts?
Um,
The addition of paving and striping?
the addition of paving and striping. Yeah.
And if I might, Mr. Chair, I did go up there today just because I kind of like to see things. And there's a lot of equipment in there. So I wasn't sure what we're looking at. Is it just a few lawnmowers? Is it, you know, the XYZ? It's 3 trucks, maybe another one that was outside, 2 large lawnmowers on a big, you know, tractor thing, whatever you call it, trailer, I should say, in addition to a whole variety, as you said, of plumbing and heating and gosh, I don't know what else, but
And plows out back.
yeah, well, that part hopefully could, I don't know how that would work, but there's that stuff in the back. But there's a lot of things in there, so it wasn't like it's, oh, we could just have a shed somewhere with a couple of lawnmowers and some various things.
No, you need a pretty good sized Butler building,
Right.
like a 30 by 30 or something like that.
Mr. Jefferson.
Mr. Chair. Respecting everybody's opinions, they were, I had similar thoughts and questions along the way. But I think we can reason a lot of this out now without requesting additional estimates. We have the cost of the building, we have the cost of the, repairs that are needed. Whatever additional grading or striping that's done around the building is gonna be less square footage than if we were to raise the building and do it completely parking. So we know that the cost of a new building is going to be significantly more. I don't think it's unreasonable to say double that.
No, more probably.
Oh, it'll be more than that.
Okay.
It's probably
so-
$1 million.
Yeah, $1 million.
Okay. So now we're talking about $1 million plus the cost of raising, plus the cost of grading, and striping versus a 300,000 plus the cost of half of that grading and striping. It seems like a pretty definitive case to me right there. That this is going to be way more cost effective. Totally in favor of the additional parking and striping and making that accessible for businesses in the area. We had discussed that when the topic came up initially, but for me, I don't see the need to wait on additional estimates for this project. I think we have the answers to everything we need right here.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody? All right, well, I'll just chime in quickly. For me, I don't see this purely as a cost issue, right? There's an element of sort of forward-looking benefit to the town, and I don't know how we balance that. I'm interested in adding parking as a priority. So for me, I wouldn't be a support of any plan where we're not adding a significant amount of parking in that location. How much parking we add, I'm not sure where the balance is for that. But trying to add parking and also be cost conscious. For me, I think the best option would be that sort of middle road where we're keeping the building, we're fixing it up because it's in use already, but we're also paving and striping and adding as much as parking as we can feasibly add. I personally don't have a lot of appetite for building another building. One of the things I hear consistently from constituents is the debt that we have is high, and for me, I'd like to see some of the debt roll off. This probably would be that type of project where we'd be looking to add to our debt, and as far as the taxes go. So I'd like to see the high school roll off before we really take on a lot of additional projects. We just heard about a fire truck, which we're talking $2.5 million. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but there's a lot of needs in town. But I also am conscious of the fact that this, it's also a strategic decision that we're making. There is some substantial benefit to just having a lot of additional parking for whatever might arise in the future in the common area. So I can see that. I don't, for me, it's not just a financial decision. But I guess the way that I think about it is that we have that option in the future. I personally think that, that middle option where we add some parking and keep the building is probably the best one that I'm interested in. And as far as making a decision, I'm interested in how much that parking would cost, but I agree with Andy. I've got enough information for myself to give a general direction on how I'd like to proceed, but I'll defer to the rest of the board once we've had some public input on this, on whether we want to provide that direction tonight or whether we want some additional information. So if there's no other commentary from the board, I'd like to just open up some discussion by introducing public commentary. So is there anything that either of you guys wanted to say before we do that? Okay. Then anybody who wants to speak on the topic can just come on up to the podium and
Good evening, Craig Dauphiné, 5 Bruce Street, and also 2 Grafton Common. So I guess I have 2 perspectives on this. First, I'm going to speak as a property owner on the Common and as a business owner. And as you can see, there's some other businesses that are local to the old Center Fire Station that have an interest in this, discussion and decision on what happens. I can tell you that in our building we have 6 businesses. 4 of those businesses are owned and operated by town residents. And Steve and Morgan and Ed are also town residents owning and operating businesses, contributing to the town. Small business owners that when somebody comes knocking on the door, and it happens on almost a daily basis for a gift, a donation, a sponsorship, they are there to help. So I look at this as an opportunity for the board to do something for the businesses. That doesn't happen very often. The businesses pay taxes, they get some services, they contribute to the community. Hopefully the community supports them. Here's a chance for this board to do something for those businesses who are always there for the community. These businesses have employees that need places to park. They have customers that need places to park that are frequenting them. On the north end of the Common, there's not a lot of parking. So this would really help alleviate that problem. So that's my business owner hat. As a resident and as a former board member, whatever you do with the building, you're going to make that decision, and town meeting will make that decision. And I would just say, get all the information you can. For Andy to say that he has enough information to make the decision, if I was there, I would say you have no information. You have a quote on 4 repairs with no detail, no cost estimates physically for you to see, okay? Because the person that got those estimates is not here. Did he get 1 quote for each repair? Did he get 3 quotes for each repair? Did he consider prevailing wage in those? Did they look at other operating systems in that building? None of that information has been presented here. You have nothing, okay? The value of that building from the town assessor's office is $847,000. At $300,000, that exceeds the 30%. So at minimum, if you do these repairs, just the 4 that Jay mentioned, you're going to have to bring up that building to handicap accessibility code, which means an elevator, which needs new bathrooms, new doorways, new hallways. You're up well over $1 million. So when you talk about numbers, you have very, very little. So if you're going to do this right, and you have to determine what the span of the life of that building you're looking to get out of it. The building is 70 years old, Ray?
Craig, I'm going to ask you to just
48.
start wrapping up.
48. I think it was built in 48. Correct.
48.
Yeah.
So 75 years old. So what do you want to get out of the life of that building moving forward? Do you want to get 25 years out of it? Do you want to get 50 more years out of it? Because I think you need to think about, all right, what is the long-term plan for this building? And if it's 50 years, then there's maybe some value in investing in it. But if you're talking elevators, you have to figure out where you're going to put that elevator. You're going to be knocking down exterior walls to create a place where that elevator can access the interior of that building. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and a professional should go in there and evaluate that entire facility, not Tony LeMay meeting with 4 contractors and looking at the pointing in the doors and the windows of that building. That is not an educated decision.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Colleen, come on up.
Colleen Roy, 53 Elmwood Street. Just for reviewing tonight, if you guys do what Ray suggested, which is bring up the grade, stripe it, add as many spots as possible, what's the number of spots you hope to achieve that way versus if you did tear the building down? What's the total number of spots? I just want to know what the difference in spot numbers are you're talking about or trying to consider.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mead.
So, I asked that question a while ago, Colleen, the same thing. And the right side of this building is about 5 feet off the property line. So, parking has to conform to zoning, has to have drainage, has to be off the property line, there has to be green space and all of that. And I looked at it and said, there's probably 18 to 20 spaces that you're gonna get out of that. To knock the building down, it's probably in the $400,000 range. And to build the parking lot is probably $1.2 million.
But how many parking spots?
18. 18
Even
to
if you
20.
knock the building down?
18 to 20. See, the lot's not that big.
Right, I know.
So you're gonna end up with 18 to 20 spaces.
For that much money. Okay, thank you.
Come on up, Craig.
I'd just like to know where Ray's getting his $400,000 to knock down the building and 1.2 million to pave or even white top or black top an existing parking lot.
Craig, you know me. 46 years in the construction.
Yeah, I know you. That's why I'm asking, because that's a lot of money to pave. What? I don't know. How many square feet is that?
That's about 18,000.
We have a contract with an asphalt paver every year. They just did this one. I'm sure we could put a couple inches of an overlay on there and stripe it and make a parking lot. I don't think 1.2 million for a parking lot is a fair estimate. Again, you don't have a piece of paper in front of you with a cost estimate on any of it, and you're ready to make a decision. So, I'd just be careful.
Thank you, Craig. Mr. Jefferson.
To that point, we're talking about doing things the right way. I don't believe that knocking that building down and just adding 2 inches of top coat to that parking lot is setting it up for future success and long-term feasibility.
Mr. Chair, I might,
Ms. Foley.
just to, on Colleen's point to the number of spaces that we would potentially get tearing down versus not, in addition to the costs of the other uses of tearing it down, paving it, building a new building. I don't have either of those numbers, and I'm not in the building industry, so that's what my point is I don't know what those are, and it's hard to make a decision.
Sure.
Because of that, for me. Those would be numbers I want.
Okay. Come on up.
Or at least as close as Evan said to even like this 300,000. Okay, there's like a number, right?
Hi, Laura Often, 79 Old Westboro Road. I'm here as actually just chair of the school committee. I just want to make sure when we walk away from this, we're very clear on what you're asking of Jay in the school department, because he did what was asked and now there's a bunch of other questions. We are moving into the school year. We're not a construction firm. We're a school district, and I'd like him to spend his time working on educating our children. So I'm not hearing much solutions. I've been at this for 10 years. I've talked when other people who are now speaking were on the board. It was always on the schools to come up with a solution. So we still have all of these trucks. So maybe that 1.5 is also talking about the need to build a new building, which I thought at one point you did research how much that was going to be.
Yeah,
And I remember it being in the 1.5, so perhaps that's where you're getting those numbers, because we'll still have to, which is still going to affect the townspeople, the people that shop at the small businesses. So it is a town problem, and I just would like to make sure that we're remembering that it's not all on the schools to be doing this research, especially now that we're down our head custodian. So if we could have your help with that, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Morgan, did you want to come up?
I don't know.
Yeah, you do. Come on in.
Morgan King, 59 Weston Street, and owner of Off the Common Antiques, 4 Worcester Street. I should have gone first instead of the others. We've built it, and they have come. I believe that Grafton Common is a vibrant part of our community, and we've seen the success with Apple Tree Arts over the last few years. The Grafton Country Store is an icon in town. Bushel and Peck has been there for a number of years. We've been there 6 years. And Chronicle has come to town. This town is just blossoming. And it's not going to get smaller, it's getting bigger. And people don't necessarily walk like they do in big cities. They need a place to park. And they park, and they don't just go to one location, they go to all of us. And now we have the Uncommon Cow here in town with ice cream and soup and sandwiches. We're going to be having Baba Sushi soon, which is a very popular restaurant from what I hear, and I can't wait to go. The library, Apple Tree Arts, Beats Dance Studio. There's a day spa that is now central on the Common. Hair salons. There's so much to do, and there is an opportunity being lost for people that own these businesses because of the lack of parking. And we're fortunate because we have a parking lot with about 6 or 7 spots. And people that live in Grafton kind of go around the block. They'll come back later if there's no parking. But we have folks coming from Boston out to our location, which really cracks me up. They go, "You drive all the way?" I don't go into Boston. You'll come out here to us. So we hear these anecdotal stories of people coming to Grafton to do things in our community. And I don't want to hurt the school department because I used to work for Department of Public Works, and they're always like low on the totem pole, especially the maintenance folks. So the goal that I would like to see as we're discussing this is to just pull back. We know this issue has existed for years with parking. We now know that the building across the street either needs some repairs or needs to come down. I do thank Ray for proposing some fixing up the existing lot to add some parking. If that is the ultimate decision, we'll embrace that, of course. In the meantime, now I'm going to throw another sticky wicket in. I wasn't going to, but we abut the Grafton Upton rail lot. There's the ugly parking lot behind us that we would love to have an opportunity to utilize. I haven't been able to facilitate a relationship to access that land. I would love for the board to, or Evan, to reach out, see if that's an opportunity. He's afraid of liability. So if there's an opportunity for him to not have liability if there's an injury, we have business insurance, I'm sure the town, that would be something to also explore. And that would be a great addition. But I also would like to try to see, and maybe there's been numerous discussions about the DPW and space and why can't some of the maintenance equipment be stored there. Let's realize some efficiencies with maintenance facility, work together. A lot of folks now, we're farming things out. We have subcontractors and things, but is there a way that the DPW and the school department can work together to share resources? Does it really cost $1 million to add on to the DPW so that some of the equipment can be stored down there? Then you have your bathrooms, you have heat. If you're working on a piece of equipment, you only need one lift for the truck. I mean, I'm just, in practical matter, is there a way that we can work together? And maybe there's a small group that get together to do this. Somebody from the town administrator's office, a couple of business folks.
So hang on just one second. I just want to give these two guys an opportunity to respond to that.
I don't want to work with Jay.
Okay. I don't think you want
You don't want to work with
you.
you. Is that-
That's gonna be
No, I mean,
that was certainly brought up when
I had the same
it was
question.
built. Oh yeah, no, it was brought up. The decision was made for whatever reason not to go forward in that direction. That's about
Which
all
was like
I
10
know.
years ago. It was a long number of years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember how many years
Yeah.
ago, but for whatever reason, the space wasn't added. I don't know the specifics. I don't know the building. I don't
Right.
know DPW enough to know if we did bring it up before. Is there extra space? Is there? And the answer, or the sense I had, was no.
yeah, that's the sense I got as well.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's, we've got a lot of talking points that I think, you know, Jay and I will need to refine.
I just want you to know, I'd love to be a part of that. I think it's a problem-solving opportunity, and I think it's a win-win for the community if we can find a home for these guys and come up with parking. And there are grants. You know, Dave Meridian was showing me a few that are available. So if we can just not get the paintbrush and the drill out and stuff, and don't you know, don't do anything too soon. Let's just try to come up with a solution so that nobody has to make the hard decision to say, or ask the voter to spend millions of dollars when it may not be necessary. If we can just work a little bit together on this. So that's my 2 cents.
Sure.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Steve, did you want to come up?
A lot was said. So, Steve Belfiore, 26 South Street, owner of Grafton Grill, owner of the Uncommon Cow now at the Grafton Common. I don't have enough information. I just jumped into this thing. I was looking at it, but a couple of questions. I mean, for someone that doesn't really know too much about what's going on, so we would pay for this as a town to fix this building, but do we get rent from the school, or is it just,
No.
they just use it?
They
So it's a
use it.
town thing,
Yep.
which is a good thing.
In the
But I
end,
mean, have we?
It's all one budget.
Right. So the need for parking is there. I mean, we all know that, and I've been here 20 years now. But had like a couple things, not the building itself, I'm not really sure where I'm at with it. I'd have to look at the numbers. I think it was great what Ray said about getting parking if you want to share it, but taking the building down, I think that's what it means when you guys say lift it, get rid of it, make it a parking lot. Depends on how many spaces you would get. Is it worth the money? I don't know. But what about the building that's behind the inn? The old barn. What are we doing with that?
So that's part of the.
So why don't we knock that down?
That's part of the 1727 Upton Street RFP.
Yeah.
That is currently held by GSX. So that was actually put into an agreement. So that's not actually the town's.
Okay.
That's not to say that we couldn't do something with it potentially.
Yeah.
If GSX isn't going to move
I
forward.
mean, it's a perfect spot.
So I agree, for what it's worth. I agree with you, but I don't think that is on the table today. But certainly it's something that I kind of have my eye on a little bit. Because I think we are going to
Knock
need
it down,
to.
put the parking lot. No one walks that far. They will if they can't park anywhere else. I mean, that's the way I look at it. But I'm not saying, you know, that's taking down the fire station right now is the answer. I don't know. I don't have the numbers, but
Okay.
we do need the parking, and I think we should look at other areas. The other things I keep asking about too is, what about the library? I mean, I hear that customers say that they're not allowed to park in the library parking lot, but it's town, so people do park there. But like, maybe we need to talk to them and try to figure out, can we at least let our customers know that they can park over there at certain times or whatever. But I mean, I think these things need to happen because we do need the parking, and the common itself. I mean, I've only been here 20 years, but the town and is around the common, whether people believe it or not. They live in South Grafton, North Grafton, West Grafton, whatever. The town common is where we started. So we should have businesses there. We should have more restaurants, you know. And my first joke was going to say we should make the firehouse a restaurant, but I'm in. But you know, we just need help. So I think we need to figure it out before we make a decision. We don't have all the answers. I don't think we have all the numbers. But just to allow us to be part of the conversation now that we are business owners looking for parking for our customers. And that's it.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else? Yeah, come on up.
Hi, Christy Kilvazinski, Lottie Drive. I just have a quick question. If we invest $300,000 into this building on Craig's Point, how long do we foresee the life of this building lasting for the school department, Dr. Cummings? That is a question.
I have no idea. I would think, obviously, Evan and I need to get together, go through, depending on the direction. Our list of things that have come up tonight, one of those pieces would be obviously involving the building inspector and get some expertise around not only the coding, the related costs with that, and life of the building once it's up to code. I would think would be.
Yeah, I think that's an important question because I would hate to invest $300,000 at this point, and then in 10 years from now, you're asking me for $1 million for a new building. So that's a question that I think needs to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, so that was a lot.
Yeah, I think I have it all.
And actually, thank you so much for everybody coming out. This was really valuable for me to hear all the commentary and to understand where people are at. I don't think anybody on the board would disagree that we need some additional parking. And I don't think anybody would disagree that the school department maintenance needs a facility to house their equipment. So we've got to harmonize those things and figure out a way forward. I'm not quite sure how to wrap that all up into this is what we want. But did you want to?
Yeah, I
Go
can
for
try
it.
to wrap it up. So I think that Jay and I can get together next week at some point, sit down with some of the feedback that we heard here tonight. I can certainly go out with our asphalt contractor that we have. We can meet out there. We just did this building. It's the same basic process. So we can talk about what their estimator would see, and then we can come up with some kind of plan that shows you return on investment, longevity of the project. Same stuff we do with our capital plan. So I think we can come up with that together, and then go from there.
Okay.
I think the folks from our so it's Lynch that holds our contract right now. They can tell you how many spots you can get. Again, I just did this, so we'd have a pretty good idea of spots with the building, spots without the building, and go from there.
Okay.
I did a Butler building in 2019 that was 28 by 30, so fairly good size, was with a mezzanine, and it was 685,000 then. So I do think it's probably $1 million building, because if you build a new building, you're going to put bathrooms in it and all these stuff, run it up. But I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole until we get some more direction. I don't want to have a work up a price that we're going to start running into spending some money on that. I don't think we want to do that yet. But I think Jay and I can make a pretty good dent based on the public feedback we had tonight and the feedback from the board.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask that we get some clarity on the ADA compliance and code compliance issue? I think that's an important one.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
And the other piece is if we could understand the differential in how many spaces we'd get existing versus raise the building, I think that's something that might be interesting as well.
We'll ask Lynch to put something together for us. It doesn't have to be, give or take a spot, so that
Right.
we don't take up too much of their time with a project that we might not go forward with. But we'll have a good idea of, is it 18 or is it 40? You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
General.
Well, I think this was a really productive discussion. I think we've, definitely understands a little bit more the context and where we're at. So with that, I think we'll leave it to you guys for now. And when you're ready, just let us know, and we'll schedule something in an upcoming agenda and try to continue moving forward with something.
Sounds great.
Is there any specific direction that you need from the board tonight that you feel like you don't have in hand?
I don't think so. I'm going to type up tomorrow morning or tonight everything that I think the board is looking for. I'll talk to Evan about it. If we aren't clear on anything, we'd reach back out to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Great. Well, thanks so much.
Matt, can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
Just so whatever happens with this situation, can we still get how do we get on the agenda or a follow-up on checking into CSX and seeing what's going on with the other building, trying to figure out other ways. We should be working on other ways to get parking so that if this doesn't turn out the way we want it or the town wants it or whatever, then we have other options that we've been looking at. So we're not dropping the ball and waiting another year before, we find things. But like, is there some way we could put that on some sort of agenda that we could say, okay, we followed up with them and we can't do that? Or, there might be other parking around there that I don't know where, but somewhere.
Sure.
Library, maybe, have a conversation with them and seeing if it's okay to tell people to park there or not. I don't know.
So I think the library is more of a library trustees issue.
Yeah, and
Not-
so far in my recollection, they've been pretty. Nope, not gonna.
don't
Trying
get
to think of a way to say it. Not really on board with
Yeah.
with
I see
non-patron parking. Because we have had that conversation a couple of times, trying to make sure that we're trying to support the businesses around there. I mean, I think that's Morgan and I talked about this almost 2 years ago. Now,
Yeah.
just starting that conversation. So, I've got some notes. We'll look at the lot behind your establishment.
Yeah, talking to the railroad.
Yep.
Yep.
So
I'm just saying there was a lot of stuff
Yeah, you
that I
guys,
just
you
think
guys
we
put out a
should
lot
be-
of really easy ideas for us to get through. So I appreciate that. The other thing, Matt was talking about the purchase and sale that GSX holds on the barn property.
Yeah. You don't even have to knock the building down. I think there's enough land on that side. There's a big rock there.
Yeah,
to
I
move
think.
it
Well, I think we have to.
for now.
So the
I know it's
town,
far
the,
away, but
yeah,
Well,
the,
please no crosstalk.
the town owns the property, but it's under a purchase and sale agreement. So if they default on their purchase and sale,
Again.
that will be, another conversation that you can have at that time. So.
yeah. Okay. I was just checking.
Yeah, no, that's very much
Yeah.
on our radar. I think all of those things. I'm not quite sure how we get back to you when we have
Yeah.
these things on the agenda, but
Because the other thing too is like Morgan said, when the inn becomes whatever restaurant it's going to be, which I heard is soon, that's more parking. If they do lunch and dinner, we're gonna need more parking. They don't have a very big lot either.
sure.
So yeah,
Yep, understood.
thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Well,
Thank you,
that,
everybody.
let's move on.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks,
to-
Jake.
Thanks so much, Jay. Let's move on to the Grafton Water District. So I know Mike's here. We've got Matt Pearson. Who else we got?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mike Corder, Chairman of the Board of the Grafton Water District. With me tonight is Matt Pearson, who's on Zoom. He is our business manager. Behind me also is Dave Erickson, our superintendent, and one of our commissioners, Ken Grew. Our other commissioner, Bob Federico, had a prior engagement tonight. Pretty much, I think, did everybody get this handout earlier? Okay. So, what we're requesting is an article for fall town meeting to see if you guys will give us permission to lease a piece of property on Powerline Drive so we can facilitate a filtering a treatment plant per se for our Trinity well. To speak more of it on what we need to do, Matt can continue from that point there.
Sure. Okay. Before we get into that, I just want to take a little bit of a step back.
Sure.
Just for the public's interest, just go through some of the context of how we arrived
Okay.
at where we're at today. So maybe if you could talk about the article that came before town meeting in 2015 and some of the sort of issues that we've run into recently with that particular well and how we could move forward.
On the article on 2015, I'd rather have Matt explain that.
Yep.
Since he has more of a history on that. I can give you more of the present day problems that we were having, but for that first part, I'd rather have Matt comment on that.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
You want me to go?
Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, we, as the fact sheet shows, we found this well source back in like 2012, 13. Took a while for us to do pump reports and studies and get DEP approval. When it came time to site the building itself, the site's very small. We decided to go to the town and try to get access to the property that's off of Powerline Drive, which is about a 3.5 acre site that was set aside as part of that subdivision for recreational purposes. The subdivision, I think, was built, Ray might know, back in the 50s, I guess.
Why am I the old guy?
I mean,
That's a shot if I ever.
Well, not that you're old, but
And as I understand it, that that lot was moved into Article 97. Is that?
yes,
Yeah.
probably true.
Yep.
So we went to the town, and at the time, it wasn't a necessity that we acquired it because there was no future treatment required for iron and manganese, or, as you well aware now in the news, the new PFAS, which is the forever chemicals. We developed a site, put a small building down there with very limited treatment, and as soon as we started using it, about 6 months later, we started getting dirty water calls. They got worse, and we basically determined that there was some sort of iron and manganese coming from the wells that was getting into the system. At that point, we basically shut it down and only used it in emergency situations. The fact sheet shows you that, we had an issue with the treatment plant. We, supply chain issues. We couldn't get a pump assembly for almost 2 months. It was a failure in the pump that required the work. It wasn't even a planned maintenance. So we had to run the well because of the drought and lack of rain for a couple months, which just made the situation awful for the customers as well as us. We met with a group of people from the neighborhood last commissioners meeting and basically presented some, findings and a path for us to continue to try to be able to use that well in the future, as well as some short-term measures. So we're coming back to the town to just, ask if we could use that site, lease it. The precedent's been set on Follette Street. We actually leased the land from the town there for the Follette Street well site and the solar array that's down there. I'll make one comment. I know we don't want to get into a lot of details now, or I don't, because I just think there's so much to talk about. The reason we'd like the article on the fall town meeting is we really can't afford to, lose 6 or 7 months worth of time just in getting something done or making some sort of other decision that we would have to do. So basically, the land we have on Follette Street, there is a field right at the entrance to Dolphin Park, which is about 3.5 acres, 4 acres of land. We have designed a soccer field there several times for the soccer committees in town because they've been looking at using that site. That's never come to fruition. So basically the 97 issue, it might be an opportunity to do a land swap. But I don't really want to get into those details now because I think we need to get over the first hurdle.
Yep.
So that's a little history and why we're here and why we want to hopefully get this on fall town meeting.
Fantastic. Mr. Corda. You can bring us up to speed on what's happening today, I guess.
So basically today, as Matt said, we did have a catastrophic failure at our East Street pump station. And during that time, we had to rely more on the Trinity Ave pumping site, well site. And with that being down for so long, back in normal times, if you want to call them normal times, we'd have parts within 2-3 weeks and back in service within no time at all. Well, 1 month turned into 2, 2 turned into 3, and 4 months later, we finally got it back online. Having said that, we relied a lot on Trinity. Trinity does have an issue with what Matt was saying with the iron and manganese. Of course, when you stop pumping that and you start using certain chemicals, it's going to create that brown water. and at this point, why we are looking to put a treatment plant there, not only to cure this problem, but down the road too. The town's growing too, and it's not like we can go down the road and buy a well site. So we need to invest into our what we have now to make sure that we can provide the best that we can provide for our customers.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jefferson.
Piggybacking off that quickly, one of the things that you guys also mentioned at your meeting was that well and the volume of water that it produces are just too valuable to the town to disregard at this point.
Correct. And again, I reiterate, it's, when you start driving around town, you start looking for possible well site areas, we really don't have that many options. So we have, obviously we have some really good sites, and we want to improve on those sites.
Makes sense. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a question on the warrant article. Sure. It says here, long-term written lease, with options to extend a period not to exceed 30 years. Shouldn't that say 10 with 4 or 5 year options, or we have to define that?
Yeah, we haven't massaged that at all. That'll come before you when we actually come with the warrant on the 19th. So council hasn't reviewed it or made any tweaks to it. It's just what was on before, and it's just so that you have a general idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And then we can work out some details. I would assume we'd make the agreement somewhat congruent with the Follette Street agreement, just so that all our contracts are the same.
Yeah, Mike, I didn't know if you had a 20 with 2 5s or what. It doesn't matter.
I honestly don't. I mean, obviously, putting that facility up is going to be long term for the town. How it's worded is.
It's an interesting concept, municipal leases, because you're never getting it back.
No kidding.
You're not going to want it back because it's cleaning people's water. So, that's why I say I would just look at the terms that we have in Follette and go from there. Just because, why reinvent the wheel and come up with different strategies if we don't need to.
Makes sense.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Foley.
So the area on power line, how large is that? Do you have any idea?
It's about 3.5 acres. We would only require about an acre of land.
And then what kind of restrictions because I actually was the chair of the Fields Coalition probably 20 years ago when we were looking at Follette Street, and that was my question on this. There were so many restrictions that we were never able to put any fields back there. So what would the restrictions look like around that?
If you were to acquire the Follette Street field, we would have no restrictions on that.
So over on the power line, that property, would there be restrictions that would go out?
No, there'd be no restrictions because that's not actually the public water supply.
Okay.
The public water supply is still down off of Trinity Ave.
Okay.
This would just be a
referring to that zone 1 restriction.
A filtering system, basically, a treatment plant.
Okay.
So there's not going to be any wells at power line.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Mr. Jefferson.
Again, just highlighting another aspect that was brought up at your meeting. You mentioned that that treatment facility doesn't need to look like a standard brick box.
No.
It can be made to fit into the surrounding neighborhood and not look like such an outlier.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir. Do those people know about this? Have we talked to them? I'm looking at the Google Maps. It's got at least 2 homes. You'd wedge right in the middle of those 2, and there's 2 on the opposite sides. Have talked to the neighbors about that? Do they have any opposition to having a water treatment facility?
We have not approached abutters on that. I do know that from our prior meeting that Mr. Jefferson was at, that there is a want and a need in that area, that they want to have something done. And this is really our only avenue that we can go down to cure that well problem. We don't have really these other problems at our other well sites. It's just this one that's just drawing, that iron and manganese in.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll be very honest, no, we have not talked to the abutters on that piece of property.
Yeah, so if I could jump in, I think
Right.
it's kind of chicken and egg, right?
Yep.
So the select board supports that, yes, we need to do something and this is the spot that we need to do it. You know, we can work out the land swap stuff in the, you know, in the meantime, once we get yep, we're going in that direction. You know, I think that there's a lot of strategies that can be employed to hide that facility, make it look like a house.
we
You can
are
put
definitely,
screening in.
yeah, we are definitely
But
willing
we can
to.
also
Yep.
pull in a butters list and send something to everyone that says, you know, at town meeting in October, this is going to be in front of the town. You know, if you'd like to come and speak about it, you can do that. It's not really a
Right.
big lift. We do that with every other project that comes for a special permit or whatever. So, you know, we can certainly help facilitate that.
Yeah, if it's tucked away, it's probably not going to be a problem for them, but they should probably know and feel at least comfortable that they've been approached.
Well, I would also imagine too, with any type of construction that, you know, the abutters would have to
Yep.
be notified anyway.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, again, the plan is to have the facility up, but it's also to make it look like it belongs there also. You know, we're not gonna just put a brick building up or
It's
a block
interesting.
building and,
Yeah, I think
and
I
call
heard
it a day.
Jefferson talk about that. So it looks like almost a small house.
We can try and make it as pleasant to the eye as possible.
Sure. And minimal traffic on a regular basis, right? Someone goes there and it's not.
It would probably on a daily basis, just to check everything out. You know, like all our other sites that we have.
Yeah, yeah, we have a thing on my street. and
Yep.
Guy shows up in a truck. I think it's your guys. Somebody.
What street?
It's Danielle Drive. I think I see Water District trucks.
Nope, that's sewage.
That's sewer pump.
Okay.
White
so,
truck.
All right.
Yep.
So, yeah, comes in the morning.
Yep.
Unobtrusive. Totally makes sense. Think it's a great idea. Just hope that it doesn't bother the folks that live next to it.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
I mean, if I might, I don't know if you've driven down there, but it's the end of the cul-de-sac. It's really overgrown. You know, if you tucked something way in and made it look nice,
Right,
it
they
might
won't
look
even
better
know
than
it's
it looks
there.
right now. And if there wasn't a lot of traffic, it's not a bad spot given where it is.
Okay, so it sounds like we're all in support. Is anybody not in support of this?
There's some public comment. I don't know if you want to talk first.
Sure.
Just kind of a brief comment on some of the mechanics around this. A couple of years ago, I did a lot of detailed investigation of all the open space in town for the updated open space inventory and the updated open space plan. One of the things that I found, and you can, if you go to the Open Space and Rec Committee's webpage, you'll see an Article 97 in the inventory.
Yep.
There's a lot of background on this. This particular parcel was voted by town meeting to be used exclusively for recreation purposes in 1980.
Right.
It was actually acquired by the town in 1988. That's the time frame. It doesn't go back as far as, you know, some people were guessing. But in any case, the important point here is that because it was voted to be used exclusively for recreation purposes, a town meeting vote authorizing an alternative use, among other things, would have to alter that 1980 vote to authorize its use for other purposes. And as long as the other purpose is considered in Article 97 use, and I believe this would be, I think it's my understanding when I developed this inventory that this kind of use would be classified as Article 97. So that avoids a lot of the more difficult mechanical issues regarding Article 97. But the point I wanted to make mainly was that the town meeting vote that you're proposing for October is going to have to include a repurposing from the 1980 vote.
Right.
Perfect.
Very good.
Other than that, I've got all sorts of other information that you don't need. It's just curious. It's called Powerline Drive, but the only access is a very narrow strip from Sunrise, which you can see on the map, of course. I drove by that when I was working on this inventory, and you'd never know There's two houses, woods in between. You'd never know that that's access into something that was supposed to be a play area, but never became that.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Mr.
That's,
Robbins.
that's what we've been using as Dave's inventory. Very helpful.
Outstanding. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Linda Hutchins at 3 Spanish River Road in Grafton. So I'm not a direct abutter to this proposed, but my property backs up to that open space that's in back of Sunrise Ave. My glasses are fogging up. I guess I'd say the only notice I've heard about this plan was a one-page thing that I think I saw on Facebook that this meeting was going to be held tonight. And there's certainly a lot to think about. You know, being in the neighborhood, I do hear a lot of the complaints about the water quality. People are pretty mad about it. And it does seem like a rational idea to put a water treatment plant on. But I would hope that before we go to public meeting on this, that we'd see something more of a conceptual plan on the design. I would hope this project would go through the planning board and through the Wetlands Commission, the Conservation Commission, because you're certainly in a wetland buffer zone down there. This whole property abuts Fisherville Pond, that whole lot. And it was put into that conservation status, I think partially as a buffer. It's a wooded buffer between the residential properties and Fisherville Pond. So there's a lot of wildlife back there. There's a lot of, I think, filtration of our runoff that goes on in that property. And I think there's, you know, some uses that need to be considered. And, you know, as well with that wetland buffer, we need to consider the setbacks and things like that. And yes, what would it look like? How much tree clearing are we talking about? Things like that. Security, would there be fencing? Things that I'd like to see as a neighbor. I'd like to know about this project before I go to town meeting with not much information at all. So I'd appreciate, I heard there was an information package. I haven't seen that. Is that publicly available?
It's in our packet, but that doesn't discuss at all a proposed facility. It's more the context of the Trinity well, the East Street well, the Follett well, and
Sure.
how they all interact and sort of, what this piece of property represents, but there's nothing specific about any particular proposed designs.
So I guess as a neighbor and a ratepayer and a water district customer, I'd like to know some more about it before I'd be asked to go vote on anything. So a conceptual design would be helpful. And I also had a question for the water district is, have you considered an alternate location like one of the water towers, one of the water tanks? I've worked with municipalities in the past that actually co-locate their treatment plant with the water tanks. So it's kind of on the same, water land.
But this treatment plant's specifically for Trinity Ave well, so that's why we want the piece of property close to it. We would pipe from Trinity Ave directly to the treatment plant. It would get treated for iron, manganese, PFAS, and then be sent out into the system. So we have another treatment plant at East Street on a bigger scale. So that's why we're looking at this site. Our other wells don't have this issue, so they don't need to be filtered. I mean, they will eventually need PFAS, but that's another story for another day.
Sure.
It might help if you give Dave a call.
Okay.
And actually make a trip up to the other treatment plant. It's not a huge facility. It's a cleaning facility in essence.
And once we hear back from the engineers, as you know, we took a bunch of samples in the area.
Yeah.
And once we get something back from them, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll know more about how big of a facility we need, and then, we can design, like I said, we can design something that doesn't look like, instead of brick and mortar building, it's something that's gonna be more, for neighborhoods.
Right, and I agree that end of Trinity or power line is not particularly attractive the way it looks right now either. And something needs to be done. So I understand all that, but just, there's a lot to think about here. And also that land is kind of protected conservation space that is contiguous along Fisherville and along the Quinsigamon River. So it's kind of a wildlife corridor as well. If we could, you know, kind of maintain some of that buffer and aquatic habitat down there, it would be beneficial.
I think you can though.
Mr.
There's a
Mr.
lot
Chair.
there.
Mr. Brassard.
So the town has to abide by all the town's bylaws and the Wetlands Protection Act, so, you know, we can't build in the resource area, can't build in the buffer. It has to go through the planning board process. It's gonna be just like any other project, just because it's municipal, water department, town, or otherwise, we'd have to abide by everything that goes along with that, so, you know, wetland delineations, all of those things would be monitored.
And also too, just to give you a little bit of a time frame too, you know, we'd like to get obviously permission to use this piece of property, but we're also looking at probably 3 to 5 years out before it actually is functional. By the time you go through the process, the engineering, plans, and everything else, so it's not like it's gonna just be like overnight.
Yeah.
It's gonna be well thought out.
And it couldn't, there's not space for it down where the well is?
No, it's a very small piece of property. I don't know if you've ever taken a walk.
I have,
Yeah,
I
it's-
have.
And, you know, like you said, there's wetlands and stuff that we can't touch, you know, the National Grid Power Company, the high tension lines, we can't go anywhere near those, so.
Okay. Just seems like if it's gonna be so small, there is some space down there that's not used.
The other point that should be made is that,
Ken, do you mind just coming up to the,
excuse me,
do you mind coming up to the microphone, just so that the public can hear?
Ken Grew, 6 Rittenhouse Road. The other thing you have to take into consideration, we don't know when a pump is gonna go, and we have to put that other pumping station on. And if we have to put it on, you're gonna have that water problem we have. And the other situation we have is, there's only one other tested well available in the whole town, and that's right behind the high school at the baseball field. That would mean that whole area would be shut down, because then you get into the circumference around the water. You know, this is for everybody's best interest, and that's why we came to you, to help us come up with the best solution.
So Ken, just to clarify, you have a tested location by the high school.
That's been
It's not built though.
That was a tested and available location when I was superintendent. And we said, no, find another place. And subsequently, I've been on the water commission for a number of years, and we have been testing all over the town. There's not a good water supply.
Yep.
And we don't want to disrupt the school, and we have this one. And it is a very good water supply, but again, as was said, when you have to put the different chemicals in that the EPA requires, it causes precipitation in the browning of the water. And this would really solve a lot of problems for everyone, so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Move the question.
Ray wants to move on. All right. I'm happy to do that. It sounds like the board's in favor generally of moving forward with the article, understanding that we need to reach out to the abutters and, you know, to just make a note. This is the first discussion that we've really had about this. So without having a direction from the board and understanding where we're at, it doesn't surprise me that we haven't reached out to the abutters yet, but at this point, I think it's probably appropriate to do that, to Mark's point. So, anyways, yeah, so it sounds like you guys have the nod that, we want to continue investigating it and moving forward to town meeting.
Yeah, William and I'll work with council to redraft that article. I mean, the bones are there, but we'll make some tweaks so that by the time we get here on the 19th, you've had a draft of that article in front of you already.
All right. Got to make a Dave tweak.
Yeah.
Change of use.
I don't do anything. I just send everything through Dave. It's the safest way.
All right. Great.
That could be
Thank you.
dangerous.
I know.
It could be.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate you
gentlemen.
guys coming in.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Thank
All
you.
right, we have next up the North Street Sidewalk Improvement Project.
Yeah, so this is just the general contract for us to go and get our design plans, measurements, and everything else. If you recall, we had conversation about using our ARPA funds to do some sidewalk improvement. This would be roughly, this would connect 95 North Street down to the other sections of sidewalk on North Street to create contiguous sidewalk for those neighborhoods in that area, as well as the school up to our park space that's already up there. So this is not, the full boat. This is the design and all of that, and project management and so on and so forth.
Yep.
Pretty standard stuff.
Any question on this contract?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Foley?
I move the board vote to approve the agreement for professional services between Vinace Hangen Breslin Incorporated and the town of Grafton for the North Street Sidewalk Improvement Project and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, next up we have the opening of the fall town meeting warrants.
All right,
Missed
I'm
one.
there.
I missed one. What did I miss?
You missed your baby.
Oh, because it's not in the packet, that's why. All right, I wanted to have a discussion about basically coming to some understanding maybe on what our strategy might look like, or policy might look like, or so just get some alignment as we approach Safe Harbor. I feel like last time we were faced with that, we weren't kind of ready for it, and we hadn't had much discussion about what that meant for the town, how that impacted our strategy in terms of considering projects and moving forward. Would we just look to slip out of Safe Harbor? Is it something that we would want to have an intentional plan to stay in Safe Harbor? Those kinds of questions, which really potentially would impact the vision that we would have for development in town. I don't think that this is a select board discussion. I think we might have some input to it. But I think as we discuss Safe Harbor, it's probably the Zoning Board of Appeals would have some input. Planning probably would have some input. Perhaps the Housing Trust might have some input. So I just wanted to basically see if the board was interested in moving forward with trying to put together some type of working group to just have that discussion. To hopefully align some of the thinking across the boards, I guess. It was my, because these topics are challenging to deal with as a town, because it's not one board or committee's exclusive decision. We all have to kind of, if we're going to move the town in a certain direction, development-wise, housing-wise, we've got to work together, and we've got to work together towards some identified goals or ends. We have a number of projects in the pipeline. We all know what happens with projects. They get approved and then not built. They don't get approved. They have to go through ZBA. We don't know what's going to happen there. There's a lot of stuff that's in flux. But we do have a fair amount that is currently in the pipeline. And I feel like it would be much smarter for us to have this discussion sooner than later, rather than waiting until we're faced with being in Safe Harbor and then having the discussions. So that's really all I wanted to talk about was to the board was, does that make sense? And then if it does make sense, I'd like authorization from the board to just start talking to some of the other boards and committees to judge their level of interest in it, and then I can come back, and if they're interested in that discussion and putting together some type of, I guess my thinking as a working group, then we can at that point move forward with getting something a little bit more formally organized. But at this point, it's just my idea. I haven't spoken with anybody about this, so it's more an observation about where we've been over the last year or so, and how I see one of this board's stated kind of goals is to be collaborative with other boards and committees, and I see this as a really good opportunity to do that. So, just open it up for any discussion that you guys want to have on it.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mead.
I think it's a great idea. I think we should have some type of working group that does this, because we have tripped over the curb a couple of times, and I think that if we get a strategy in place, that we can move forward very easily. Whether it's us sitting here, or 10 years from now somebody else sitting here, that we have that, and I think it's a great idea.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I would agree
Ms.
with that. I think not only strategy, but even vision, that we can come together with other groups and figure out, what is our vision? Where do we see us going? So I think it's great. And to your point, when I came on the board, they were coming in, bang, bang, bang. And it was a lot. So to be able to take a step back and look at it with other folks that are parties, that are involved, ZBA to your point, AHT, et cetera, I think it'll be great.
Okay. Which I found myself a little bit on the back foot in terms of how to think about the lips, for example. Because we don't have any kind of overarching strategy that we're sort of aligning to. I found that challenging to consider the lips and the benefits and sort of costs and trade-offs for those, because we kind of haven't had the discussions. And for example, I had no idea what would happen for an endorsed lip once we got to ZBA, because we haven't talked to them about how they think about lips, and I think that's an important discussion. So, okay, any other? Mr. Jefferson.
Just trying to weigh the flip side of that, and I was going back and forth with, does it make sense to put together a working group, with some representation, or should we focus maybe more on some joint meetings or some check-ins between the existing boards and committees? I like the idea of discussing strategy and making sure that we're all on the same page. And maybe some of these questions, observations, are things that come out over the course of that work group's discussion. But I feel like plans are in very different states when they get to all those different positions that you just mentioned. So I don't, I'm curious how we would take, I guess, a more unified approach to that in working through those things, because we don't have some of those answers up front that zoning will be looking for. When it gets to them, maybe it's getting too much into the technical and the weeds on that.
So do you have, so your thought is that we would do some joint meetings to sort of discuss these topics with individual boards?
Well, that's what I'm wondering is, because again, I think the board representation works well, where one of us, if we were thinking in, just going to assume that we were thinking of it in that way. If one of us is a representative to that board and then comes back and briefs the rest of the board on that issue, at the same time, other board members may have entirely different questions than what that representative is going to go in and ask. And so, having the larger audience may make a little bit more sense, in terms of having more thorough discussions. I'm not against the idea. I'm just trying to, weigh out the angles with it.
Sure. And look, I'm not married to the working group by any means. I just, my sort of desired outcome is that we have some collaboration between the various stakeholders.
Yes.
I would like some type of position to come out of it. Cause it's my observation that towns have different visions. Some towns have a stated goal and approach to stay in safe harbor once they've gotten there. Some towns don't, and they've got other priorities, and safe harbor just isn't as important to them. So I'd like to, I don't know the best way to do that, because I am conscious of the fact that if you look across this board, we probably have some differing opinions in terms of what the approach should be, and what those questions are, and how to sort of structure the conversation, and all of that. So I don't know, you know. What do you guys think about some joint meetings? And we could do it that way.
You know, what does a board look like 3 years from now? What do each of those boards look like 3 years from now?
Mr. Chair? Oh, wait, were you gonna?
Mr. Chair.
Mark?
Yep. So, I think I hear you say, let's get all of these committees in one big room and talk through it a little bit.
Maybe not all at the same time, but yeah, more or less.
Yeah, that's, I was thinking that too, but then when you were saying that, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, about, differing opinions, that could be challenging when you get the big, you know, thinkers and the big opinions in one room. So, to back up, I think it's a great idea. Anything strategic and thoughtful that works collaboratively and cooperatively with people, it's great. And I do kind of like the approach of you sort of exploring synergies with these individual entities, maybe first before we got everybody in the big room, because that, I could just see that being a long night.
And we certainly
You
don't.
know, maybe in a good way.
We don't have to get everybody together all at the same time either.
Yeah.
We could have some meetings with other boards and committees, kind of to explore the various inputs, you know, to try to compile those and come up with an approach that way. I don't know. This is a challenge, right? So I'm not sure exactly how to structure it so that we do have an outcome where there's enough input. Just one second. There is a structure to the conversation, and we do, you know, produce an outcome that people are relatively confident has been vetted, I guess is the word, or, you know, where we've had enough input where there is sort of a consensus on the approach.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I'm gonna agree with Mark. You know, joint meetings. And we've all been in them. There's not a lot that comes out of them after the 3 hours that you're all sitting there, you know, with this comment and that comment and this comment and that comment. I think what we need is a working group from each, you know, zoning and planning, and I point to Dave when I say planning, and, you know, somebody from here or two people, whatever it is, to put together a plan, talking points and everything like that, and then come back to a joint meeting. You know, go to their individual, go to the zoning board, go to the planning board, go to, you know, present before the here, and then have a joint meeting. Because as everybody knows, everybody has an opinion. And we can sit here for 3 hours or 4 hours and not get anything done.
Yep. People are really passionate about this particular topic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
So I think that if we're gonna come up with a strategy and we're gonna come up with, you know, the forward progress of this town with you know, affordable housing and all of that, that we do it on a small scale and then bring it back to the large scale.
Okay.
That's my opinion anyway.
All right. Ms. Foley?
Yeah, I kind of forgot what I was gonna say a minute ago, but I agree that I think the notion of a smaller working group, to start, and then, you know, you could grow from there. I think actually what I was gonna say was to, you know, maybe after this, reach out to ZBA, planning, the other parties, throw it to them as well and see what they think.
Sure, yep. So I guess, you know, the discussion was, is it a good idea? What's the approach we want to take? And if it is the working group, you know, are you guys okay with me just reaching out?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jefferson, come on in.
Should we also make sure that we're not stepping on the town planner's toes in this process as well, and that they're well vetted and brought in?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Absolutely. Mr. Robbins, come on up.
Yeah, so
Start the clock.
Go.
This should be quick. I'm gonna put one of my hats on, the chair of the master plan working group, and ask what your
Thought you
sense
might.
is, what your sense is of how this fits in with the master plan. Because among other things, the master plan is intended to come up with a long-term strategy for housing development. So there seems to be a relationship there. You know, you're focused kind of specifically on the topic of safe harbor and how that fits in, but that does relate to what the master plan working group is going to be doing. So there's a connection there. You can think about how you want to make that work.
Sure. That makes sense.
You gonna stay there, Dave?
Colleen, come on.
This is more comfortable than that.
So that's a yes. That's definitely a yes. It's a strong yes.
Behind the microphone.
Colleen Roy, 53 Elm Street. So I was going to suggest that, and the housing production plan's being updated right now. So there are two documents that'll guide these boards and committees as they change over the years that you guys should try to get that vision concreted in those documents is one of those outcomes you're looking for. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I've definitely been participating, at least in some of the master plan discussions, as well as the housing production plan. So,
Hopefully I won't have anything else to say.
I guess the other way, you know, in terms of timing, we could wait until those documents are done and see if there's anything left to discuss, I guess. If you guys, I'm not, you know, in a rush necessarily, but
Well, I think, Mr. Chair, that this is something that's gonna take a long time. And if we can get it going, you know, sooner rather than later, it's gonna benefit us because there's, you know, there's a lot of apartments right now that are in the plans.
Yep.
And, you know, to get us back in safe harbor would be really, really good.
Sure.
So I don't think it's something we should delay because it is gonna take a while.
Okay. Well, you guys okay with just moving forward then? So, Dave, I'll take your commentary to heart for sure. So that's great. So I'll just move forward with it. And just report back to the board when I have more information.
Great.
Thanks, man.
All right. What do we get next? Fall town meeting warrant.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Foley.
I move the board vote to open the town meeting warrant.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Did you just wake up?
Aye.
Aye.
I.
Motion carried.
You need to reprimand him soon.
Do we have to separate you two?
You might have to. He doesn't want.
All right. Next up, we have correspondence. Any
Select board reports?
Oh, board reports. Okay. Any board reports?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mead.
The EDC is putting together a draft business survey, business and town survey for economic development, and also looking into doing not a dinner, but inviting businesses in and you know, doing some you know, at the pub or wherever else, and getting all the businesses to come in to talk to us about what they, you know, what their futures are, what they look for, and what they want to see.
Great.
So that would probably happen in sometime in the spring.
Fantastic. Any other board reports?
Yeah, I have. Oh, sorry.
Good.
Did you have your hand up?
Nope. Go for it, Emery.
I don't know if it's a report per se, but I did do the exit interview. That's complete. I just need direction as to, you know, who to share that info with.
Did you find value in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there is value in it. I don't say that in a sarcastic tone, just, you know. Master plan meeting was held not too long ago. We essentially set up future meeting dates, including a community workshop date, which will be October 19th at the high school in the cafeteria from 6 to 8 p.m. That's a Thursday night. So that will be open to the community, and certainly we encourage folks to come and let their voice be heard. And there also would be a presence and or info table at the town meeting. And our next meeting is on the 18th of this month. Open Space and Rec, we also had a meeting August 23rd, along with reps from CMRPC. and select board representatives, planning, etc. And essentially, the minutes are in here, but we reviewed the list of criteria and what we might look at in terms of ranking land for future uses. And feedback was provided to the CMRPC rep, and they are going to go back and kind of revisit that or revise that document, and we'll be sharing that at the next meeting. Let me know if there's any questions as I'm going. We haven't had an ARPA meeting in quite some time, but we are going to have one next Monday on the 11th. And that's all.
All right. Mr. Jefferson.
As of Thursday, bylaw will have met the last 3 Thursdays in an effort to wrap up everything and have it ready for the town meeting warrant. Yeah, it's looking like a long warrant at this point. We've done a 1-to-1 between warrant articles and bylaw articles for review. There's been some discussion about batching those for consent agendas. But yeah, we seem to be in great shape and should finish it up on Thursday.
Sounds good. Not much from me. Andy and I did go to the Open Space Rec meeting with CMRPC along with Anne Marie. I found that to be really, really valuable. It was a good process to go through.
Piggybacking off that,
sure.
As one of the people who said, what is the value in using some of that grant money to work with CMRPC, it was very apparent what the value was at that meeting. They were great, and I look forward to seeing the overlays that they come back to, and really setting us up for the future.
I don't think people really appreciate how much experience there is in CMRPC. They work with so many municipalities on so many different things. Open space and rec plans, strategy documents, all kinds of planning activities and whatnot.
I can say I was one of those people, which is why I felt it was important to come clean here and say, yeah, it was good that we did that.
Absolutely. Okay. TA report.
Okay, here we go. All right, so this is just, again, we're carrying over things meeting to meeting so that we don't let them fall off the radar. George Hill, it's pretty much not going to change until the springtime. We should have December, January, the more complete design. So we'll be able to go out to bid in the spring. ARPA sidewalks, you just went over that contract, so we're hopeful again that is a spring project. So do the design work over the winter and be ready to go early in the spring. If you've been down to South Main Street lately, final paving is underway. It's looking really good. Still getting a lot of feedback from the residents, but I think it's coming out very nicely. It looks great. The granite curbing is really nice. The sidewalks are nice and wide. So we're still continuing to work through some of the smaller things, but I'm very happy with the way that project is moving forward. Looks real good. Flashing pedestrian signs we've talked about a number of times. They're still on order. We're still waiting. They're just not available. So as soon as they get here, Highway has said that the install is very quick and easy, so they'll be up as soon as they hit our shop, but not a whole heck of a lot we can do about it until they show up from the vendor. South Grafton Community House, so we're getting ready to go out to bid hopefully next week for that painting project. So that's painting, outdoor restoration, wood replacement, so on and so forth. So that will be very good. Obviously, if you've been here, Municipal Center parking lot is complete for the most part. A couple of little tiny tweaks, but not anything that anyone that wasn't part of the project would notice. But I think it came out really nice. And still continue to get people going the wrong way, just faster now, which is fun. But no, I do like how it came out. I think it looks really nice, and it has improved our stormwater management dramatically as far as puddling and shedding and all that.
Great.
That part of it works phenomenal. And Chief Matthew touched on it earlier. We had our first regional emergency communication center meeting. We are months ahead of where the state thinks we are. So that was really the purpose of that first meeting, was to, they had a list of things that we should be doing. We've already completed everything on that list. So we're hopeful that we can then kick this a little bit into next gear here and get a lot of the next phase completed before spring even rolls around. So the state said that it's 5 to 7 years. We think it's sub 3, so that's what we're working towards. And judging by the amount of work that the group's already done, we're right on track with that. A lot of it coming out of Chief Purcell's office in Westboro. He's all over it. So that's nice to have their partnership on that. And I think that's all I have. Will's going to give an update on the library.
Yeah. So as has gone around online through conversations, things like that, the Grafton Public Library experienced some flooding on Friday, August 18th. It primarily affected the community room, the children's program room, and the children's library room, as well as the children's librarian's office. Town staff thankfully moved very quickly to mitigate as much of the flooding as possible. We have 3 photos here. The first were the community room. The third one is the children's library. Custodial staff pretty much immediately started sweeping the water out of the building. We went out and we purchased a shop vac. They started to use that, and finally we have a carpet cleaner that we set to extract, and it started pulling the water out from the carpet. And I think how quickly they moved is going to really help us in the long run in terms of solving these problems. We had ServPro on site the following week, and they started to do some pretty significant testing throughout all of the rooms that were affected by this. The photos, that's the children's program room up top, and that is the closet in the children's program room down below. Based on everything they've done, the carpets appear to be in fine shape. They don't think there's any worry of any mold growing under them because of how quickly custodial staff was able to move. The vinyl flooring in that room is starting to peel away a little bit, and they're worried about that, so when they come back at a later date, they're going to be looking at that pretty closely. And moisture is present in the walls throughout all of the affected rooms. So our Maya adjuster is going to be on site tomorrow. He and I are meeting so that they can generate a claim number, take a look at everything, make sure it's all covered by insurance, and we have ServPro set up to come back on site on September 25th, where they'll begin the full remediation work. From talking to Maya, our town insurance does cover this type of damage, so it's backup of sewers and drains. It's not groundwater that came up. It's water that ran along the side of the building and penetrated. So that's covered, but unfortunately that actually makes it a different type of floodwater, Category 3, which means they're going to have to come in and cut away the drywall and the insulation, take it out, and replace it. One thing I want to touch on is staff handled the situation very well. Library staff moved pretty much immediately and saved all of the furniture and materials that were on the ground in the wet area. So we've cleaned those, disinfected them, and made sure they're safe for people to use. And those have been put back in place. But I really think had they hesitated, it would be a different situation. And our 2 custodians who were on staff that day, Joe Pacone and Thomas Edwards, were invaluable in this situation. They got to work immediately. They were there before I even got there, pushing water out, working to move things. They were really kind of the unsung heroes of the day, along with everybody else. They were there for a couple hours, working and making sure everything was where it needed to be. But so that's a general update on the library situation as it stands right now. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mead.
So Will, what are we doing to address the problem in how the water entered into the building?
So we are doing 2 things with that. One, that's one of the things that we're going to cover with the Maya adjuster tomorrow, is looking at the doors and checking them out so we can get a third-party opinion on that. We have brought this to the construction crew, or the construction team, I should say, because we're still meeting with them weekly, and we want to make sure if there was something that was done wrong, they are aware of that, so that way they can fix that issue so this does not happen again.
So what is the issue?
I don't know the answer to that yet.
So is it the sidewalks at the same level as the floor?
No, I think you got a couple issues in my opinion. I'm not a construction guy, but you've got a minor pitch issue, the way that it heads towards the building. But I actually think that if you look at the weather event that caused that, it actually was overtopping the wetland next door. It was overtopping the town's sewer or water, stormwater infrastructure coming across the lawn and down there. So you're getting it from two different places. But you had such a large rain event, it overwhelmed the roof system. You can see where it overtopped the roof. And you also had some pretty major wind event because it pulled all of the flashing on the roof up. It's all at a 90-degree angle sticking out. So, we just anecdotally, there's not a lot you're going to do on the wetland side because it's the wetland and that building's only 15, 20 feet or whatever, 25 feet, whatever it needs to be. It's right there. If you go look, there's a split rail fence and then it's wet. But I think we can do stuff on the, something on the uphill to take some of that water and discharge it lower. We also found a drain that's in the mulch bed that they never uncovered, which wouldn't have stopped this particular event, but it would have probably made it less. That's as far as we've gotten so far.
Okay. On the doors, Will, if you look into like an expandable seal on the doors, that it would go across the bottom and comes up the sides on each one of the doors.
Okay.
It doesn't make it any more difficult to open because it flips a little lever that makes the door open, but when the door closed, those seals close up the door.
Yeah, we had actually gone and looked at the high water mark against the building, and the water was 5 inches up the exterior doors.
Wow.
Yeah, this was a lot of rain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so, we're working on it in short. But I think that you're going to take a lot of remediation steps, but if you get the same amount of rain, we're going to wind up with water.
It's gonna happen again.
It's going to happen again. Yep, it was a ton
one-
of water.
One thing those seals do is they'll, and you can put them up as high as you want. They just, when the door closes, those seals expand and it doesn't allow water to come in from the outside.
So I will have to double check, but I believe those types of seals are present on the 3 doors facing the wetlands.
Really?
Yeah, I believe we talked about that at the construction meeting immediately after the event.
Probably just at the bottom though.
Yes.
Yeah, so you run them up the sides and then that stops the water from coming in the frame.
Okay.
Hit the frame, so.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jefferson.
What are we talking about with drywall and insulation repair? Is that full wall or just like lower third?
1 foot up from the floor, anywhere there's moisture.
And then as they do the work, if they discover a spot where it's wicked up higher, then they go higher. But they were telling us that the standard starting spot is about 1 foot.
And I'd also like to add in talking to ServPro, there is no health risk presently because the walls are still sealed. So even if there is mold growing, it does not pose any sort of a health risk for any patrons or staff of the library.
Good to know.
We didn't have any issues or damage to the floor outlets.
Nope. So we turned those off pretty much immediately. That was the first thing the fire department did when they got there. We've since had an electrician come out, inspect them, dry them when necessary, sign off on them, and those are all back on.
I had Will put a penny in it and see if the GFCI still worked, and it did. It did. I told him, you hold it, I'll flip the breaker, let's see what happens.
I'm still here. So.
Something you only do once.
That's right. Lesson learned. All right. Any other questions about the library?
All right, moving on to correspondence.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Jefferson.
There was directed at our town administrator.
Oh,
There was one that had come in about the South Grafton paving project that you had mentioned you might follow up on.
Which we've gotten a ton of correspondence. Which one in particular? Sorry.
Mr. Forbes and the condition of the walkway leading up to his house and the shift on the front stairs.
Yes. So I did speak with Mr. Knoyer, who has met with that homeowner about the lip and all the issues that he outlines in there that were addressable. So I believe we are good there. We got several with the same concrete difference between their driveway and the sidewalk and things like that, and it's just a matter that they're not done yet.
Right.
So every single one of those, we did make sure that we got them to Mr. Knoyer, and Mr. Knoyer did give us feedback that he's in conversation with these folks and working to get it resolved.
Awesome.
So-
Appreciate both your efforts on that.
Yep. Sorry, we have a lot of correspondence about South Main Street, so I wasn't remembering which one was to you folks and which ones just came to us.
Has it all been the same
Uh,
or just mixed bag?
It's a mixed bag. Yeah, everything from you planted grass in the tree belt, and if you don't mow it, I'm gonna go round up the whole place. That was a fun one. That was a fun one. Yeah, navigated that. I don't think we solved it. It might be rounded up right now. I don't really know. No, but anything from that.
Be mowed.
Yes, nothing looks better than a dirt spot in the middle of your sidewalk. No, but it's been kind of everything. It's, the height of the structures, the width of the road, the curve of the road, the intersections, the street signs. A lot of it is, it's a state project and they follow the state's universal traffic code. So a lot of it is not, there's no input from us on where they put, a curve ahead sign. There's a manual and it says you do that 45 feet before the curve. That's just how it goes. I really think we need to get the project done and live with it for a little while and see what is, what is aversion to change and what is, something that we can potentially address. But I mean, I've been down there quite a bit during this last phase, especially. Looking at problems and trying to get a feel for them myself when we're going through. And honestly, most of them, I got a lot of complaints about the road width. But when you go down there, there's, structures with barrels on it, which is eating up at least 4 to 5 feet of road width. So once that overlay happened, it's the same width it was before. So we've been just kind of working our way through that. I will say, 90% of the people have been real nice, and it's just a conversation. Coming a little hot at the beginning, but then when you have a regular conversation with folks there, they're more than happy to do it. Some not so much, but I'm really having done this work for a while, it's a good project. I mean, even you look at the things that haven't gone well with it compared to some of the other ones I've seen. It's going really well, so I'm happy with it. I think it's going to be great for that area. Real injection. So.
I might, Mr. Chair. I think also it's been a long project, right, for the folks that live there, and probably just taxing their patience as well.
Yep, a little bit of that. Yeah, we've heard that from some folks.
It's a big project. It's a
it's huge, and it's they are right on schedule with what they said they would be. But I think living right there and hearing the trucks every beep backing up and pavers and all that, I'm sure that is taxing. You're absolutely right. So looking forward to that being done and being able to just use it and see how folks adapt to it. I think it's going to be good.
Any other correspondence, discussion? I'd like to talk about the CMMPO reached out to us looking for a select board rep. Anne-Marie said she was interested in doing that. Is there anybody else interested?
So moved.
I don't think we have to take a vote on
It's
it.
okay.
Everybody else is
Aye.
happy to move forward with that.
So moved.
Anne-Marie, take it away. It's all yours. Next we have resignations.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Foley.
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the resignation of June Murray as an election worker for the town of Grafton.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Foley.
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the resignation of Bill Cutler from the Council on Aging.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Actually, I was just going to ask, can we send a thank you
Yes,
to
we
these
do.
folks? Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Foley?
I move the board vote to acknowledge and accept the resignation of Krista Marat from the position of Human Resources Analyst.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Does anybody on Zoom or in the room have public commentary?
No hands on Zoom.
All right, we'll move on to meetings. Minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Foley?
I move the board vote to approve the meeting minutes for April 20th, May 4th, and June 6th of 2021, and August 15th and August 23rd of 2023 as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Foley?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.